But that's a great thing. He did.
Oh, look at that reaction. Look at that. What do you say? What do you know? It's the Full Monty Sports Show. It is Sunday, December 11th, 2022. I am your host, Monty Perez, aka the Sports Whisperer. You can follow me on social media on Twitter, MontyJP231, and on TikTok, over 2 million views right now, Monty Perez231. And we got great news. Great news. We are now doing the Full Monty Sports Show podcast, doing about two of these a week. Basically, what it is, about 30 minutes of my sports takes. We just uploaded this week my AFC breakdown of the entire AFC and my NFC breakdown of the entire NFC. So it's about 30 minutes, just audio. A lot of people are confused. They were like, is this, your show? What's going on? It's just a simple podcast where you hear my sports take. A lot of people like this because they could, when they're on their lunch break, go to their car with your earbuds, listen in when they're doing their errands, or when you're at the gym, instead of listening to the radio, hear my latest sports take. Again, the Full Monty Sports Show podcast. It is just audio. Anywhere you can find podcasts, just type in the Full Monty Sports Show, and therefore we will keep doing this. Share it with someone, tell your friend, tell your family about it. I expect this to blow up really quickly and get super popular. So thank you all who've already listened already. And again, follow me on social media on Twitter, MontyJP231, and on TikTok, over 2 million views at Monty Perez231. We have the best guests all across the country. This week is no exception. Super excited to have Pat Benson Jr. join us to talk about the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are going through so many injuries right now. Their top three players are out. So, wow, a lot of injuries. Pat's a great guest, been on the show before. So glad to have him back. Again, Pat's going to join us in about 20 minutes. He covers, he's a writer for Fan Nation, and he covers the Atlanta Hawks daily, goes to the games, goes to the practices, just does a tremendous job. You definitely want to follow him on social media. He's going to be talking NBA and also talking the Atlanta Hawks. All right, so we start each show with the good, the bad, and the funny. The good, the bad, and the funny. I just made that banner yesterday. So the good and bad and the funny. All right, let's get to it. So the good, the good. Brittany Griner has been released from Russian prison and is now home. This is a good thing, America. This is a good thing. But what I want to do here is I want to break down all the hypocrisy. I want to break down all the radical right-wing talking points that are absolutely disgusting in getting Brittany Griner home. First of all, I don't smoke marijuana. I don't take drugs. I'll take melatonin. That's about as heavy as I go. I don't even drink anymore. I haven't had a more than one drink in about 30 days. I made a pledge to myself that I would not drink until I reach my career goals. Kind of doing a health reset, trying to get leaner, that type of thing. So I don't even drink anymore. But if you smoke marijuana, what do I care? She had less than a gram of cannabis oil on her. Cannabis oil. I know people who smoke cannabis oil once or twice a week. I know people who vape with that all the time. It's their life. Now, if you want to say, like the radical right is, oh, she's a criminal, she broke the law. If you want to say that, okay, did she deserve 9 years in prison? And again, if you still want to keep on with that narrative that Brittany Griner is a criminal, she should have got what she's coming to her. Okay, she broke the law. What about this guy? The Trump Organization convicted on 17 counts, including conspiracy, tax fraud, falsifying business record. They were found guilty by a jury. Not a marijuana possession that hurts no one. If you think marijuana, not marijuana, if you think cannabis oil hurts you, she wasn't hurting anyone. They stole millions and millions of dollars. So if you're going to say that Brittany Griner is a criminal and you're overlooking this, then you're a goddamn hypocrite. Now, the next thing people will say, you know what? She hates America. She hates America because she kneeled. She hates America because she peacefully protested injustices. First of all, do you know how much charity work and involvement Brittany Griner is in her community? I can't even go over the list of doing research for the show. She has done so much to help those less fortunate. She hates America. First of all, you don't get to say who hates America when you back this BS. This is a peaceful protest. This is hating America, killing cops. Numerous police officers are injured for life. Police officers died because you believed the biggest lie ever perpetrated on the American public. So don't tell me if you kneel, you hate America. You don't get to say who hates America when you support this BS. Off of when you lose Bill Barr, the Attorney General, I mean, come on. What is, if you don't like America, I don't remember any time when Al Gore won the popular vote in 2000 over George Bush that Democrats did this. I don't remember when Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes. Democrats did this. Don't remember. This is a peaceful protest to bring about change. And for all you say it's the anthem, you got to stand, shut up. When Lawrence Taylor wasn't high playing football games, he would sit there with his hand on his chest and sing the national anthem. Oh, he's a great American. Really? Are you talking about the guy that was found guilty on tax fraud, Lawrence Taylor? Are you talking about the guy that solicited an underage prostitute and when she said she was underage, he still said, I'm fine with it? Are we talking about the guy that got so drunk one day he drove into a police car here in Florida and almost killed a police officer because he hit the car that was parked? That Lawrence Taylor? Guys, most local TV stations don't even show the national anthem. I watched Knicks games for years on Madison Square Garden. They would go to a commercial when the singer would sing the national anthem to get more money. And finally, well, he left a Marine. He left a Marine, Paul Whelan. Let's talk about Paul Whelan, shall we? A citizen of four countries, the United States, Canada, the UK, and the Irish Republic. Paul Whelan was court-martialed by the Marine Corps and received a bad conduct discharge after being convicted of multiple counts of larceny, dereliction of duty, identity fraud, false statements, and check fraud. This is the guy you want to bring home? A guy whose own people, you know how hard it is to get kicked out of the military? You got to be a real scumbag. Because let's face it, the military has millions of great people in it. Millions of great people. I have family members who served in the military. But there's also the misogyny, the sexism, the racism. How many movies have we seen? Kill them all and let God sort them out. This guy is no hero to America, and Brittany Griner's not a hero. But I will say this, Brittany Griner has done more for the inner cities, has done more for our community than stealing, larceny, felony than this guy. And for all you people saying Trump, the criminal that he is, would have got him out. Who? Are we talking about Putin submissive here? Look at this picture. Here's a statement from Whalen's brother. Former President Trump appears to have mentioned my brother, Paul Whalen's wrongfully detention more in the last 24 hours than he did in 2 years of his presidency, in which Paul was held hostage by Russia. I don't suggest he cares now any more than he did. Any more than he did. Trump had 2 years to get this guy out, and of course he wouldn't because he's Putin submissive. The radical right doesn't get to say who hates America and who doesn't. This is not hating America. This is hating America. And you know what else is hating America? This. Look what the Republicans have voted against in the last few years. Cheaper gas, cheaper insulin, voted against child tax credit, voted against stimulus checks, voted against stopping domestic violence. Don't you dare sit there and tell me who hates America when this is what you support, you bunch of criminals. Tired of it. I'm tired of the BS. Brittany Griner came home, and it's a great thing that she did. All she did was have cannabis oil. She's not a hardened criminal like this guy, like these people. This is peaceful protesting. This is radical right-wing domestic terrorism. Okay, that started out good, pretty much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, listen, I'm coming at you hard. That's how we do it. Here we go. Okay, now let's get to the bad. So, Baker Mayfield has been on 3 teams in 2 years, right? He was on Cleveland, they ran him out of town. He was on Carolina, got hurt, couldn't start, played terrible, they ran him out of town. Baker Mayfield came off the bench and led the Rams to a 98-yard drive, and they beat the terrible Raiders 17-16. How terrible have the Raiders been? Let's go to the videotape.
Can the media stop saying Derek Carr is a borderline top 10 quarterback? He's last in the red zone in completion percentage, and the Raiders are ranked 23rd on third down trying to get a first down. Let's just stop it already. Can the media stop saying...
Stop talking about the Raiders like they're an elite team. What he did was good, but can Al Michaels just stop the insanity? There are very few. My mom asks me all the time, like, who do you like as an announcer? There are a few people that I like, but I never watch a game based on the announcers. But what Al Michaels did was Al Michaels, after the touchdown, is like, the Cleveland Browns are asking Baker Mayfield to come back. The Browns fans. Can we stop? Can we stop? Stop losing your mind off a number 1 pick who's now going to be a Ryan Fitzpatrick, a career backup. I mean, good story, but now people all over social media are saying, this is Baker, he's going to be rejuvenated. He's not starting over Matthew Stafford. No one in their right mind, if you were a NFL GM, director of player personnel, a scout, is going to sit there and say that we need to get Baker Mayfield in here so he can start games next year. Get the hell out of here. Al Michaels, you are so clueless, it's not funny. Baker Mayfield, the Browns fans are saying, please come back. Ask Brad Ward, and I'll ask him on our show tomorrow night, Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, the full Monte Sports Show, as we recap Week 14 NFL games. Let's ask Brad Ward if he wants Baker Mayfield back in Cleveland. Good job, Baker. You came off the bench, saving his career. He's going to be a Ryan Fitzpatrick, a spot starter, a career backup. End of story. Now, to the funny. Okay. Again, only in Florida. What's the saying? Joe came on my show, Joe Cardozo, the owner operator of Nuts and Bolts Sports, now Team NBS Media, and he said, "I don't have any facts, Monty, but you're wrong." I don't have any facts, but I really believe that Florida is the dumbest when it comes to criminals. So, a robber was found sleeping in a home that he packed everything up and robbed. Dominique Picard says after robbing a house in Lady Lake, Florida, he took everything he could, loaded up in his car, and then was so exhausted he took a nap on the couch. When the woman came home, she saw him there sleeping. She called the police immediately. The police arrived at the house, and when they asked Mr. Pinkard why he was sleeping, his response was, "I worked hard today. I robbed 4 houses. Just needed a nap." They checked him for drugs, alcohol, nothing. I love how he said he worked hard today, robbing 4 houses, so he just needed a nap. How tired do you have to be that you can't walk to your car where it's parked and sleep in your car? Again, we have the dumbest criminals in Florida. All right. So, yes. Yeah, no one wants Baker Mayfield back. And yes, Andrea, that is the dumbest criminals ever in Florida. Maybe you have dumb criminals too in Wisconsin. So we will see. All right. So I am now 120 and 57 picking NFL games. I'm 120 and 57 picking NFL games. Let's get right to it. And then we're going to have Patrick Benson Jr. join us to talk about the Atlanta Hawks and the NBA. Okay. So we have the Eagles 11-1 traveling to New York to take on the New York Giants. Jalen Hurts, the first player in the history of the NFL. Okay, Jalen Hurts, the first player in the history of the NFL to rush for 6,500 passing yard, pass for 6,500 passing yards, rush for 1,500 yards in his first 30 games. Here's what most people don't know. The head coach of the Giants, Brian Dable, was at Alabama when Jalen Hurts was the starter, and he benched him in the national championship game, running the offense for Tua Tagovailoa. He benched him. So you don't think Jalen Hurts is going to come in to this game with a whole set of revenge and anger? This guy is so motivated. He doesn't need the extra motivation. The Giants are the worst 7-4-1 team in the history of the NFL. Take the Eagles here. Jalen Hurts has a monster game, 33-23. Okay, 7-5 Jets travel to the Buffalo Bills. Let's remember Mike White is now the starter. The Buffalo Bills lost on November 6th to the Jets 2017. Key matchup right here is Sauce Gardner, the Jets defensive back, against Stephon Diggs. He had 5 catches and 93 yards. The Jets are a good story, like the Giants, but they are not an elite team. I'm rolling with the Bills here, 31-17. 31-17. Dolphins are 5-1 in prime time. 5-1 in prime time games over their last 6. Listen, Justin Herbert, as you can see here, has been dominating. He has over 330 passing yards. Not one wide receiver on his team is in the top 30 in receiving. He just spreads it around. They've had injuries. Tua played very bad. Tua played very bad last week. I expect them to bounce back, and hopefully Brandon Staley will get fired for the Chargers. Take the Dolphins here. High-scoring game, 31-27. 8-4 Ravens at the 5-7 Steelers. Listen, guys, I'm just going to say this right now. I like the Ravens in this game to win. I'm sorry. I like the Steelers in this game to win. I think the Steelers have found something here. Lamar Jackson is not starting, and the Steelers have won 2 in a row. Mike Tomlin has never, ever had a sub 500 season. They are 5-7. I'm going with the Steelers here in an upset, 2016. How about this stat right here? The first time in Super Bowl era that we have a 10-2 team going up against an underdog in the Detroit Lions, who are 5-7, and the Detroit Lions are favored. The Detroit Lions are favored in this one. I'm going with the Vikings. I like the Vikings all year long. I said in preseason the Vikings would run away with this division. TJ Hawkinson, my boy, has 30 catches since he's joined the Vikings from Detroit. Take the Vikings here, 31-30. Close game. They win in a field goal. And watch out for this, right? Who leads the league in most pressures? Zadarius Smith, the former Packer, is now with the Vikings, and he's just killing it. He should put pressure on Jared Goff, who's had a very good year. Okay, Tennessee Titans, 7-5, hosting the 4-8 Jacksonville Jaguars. This division is so bad. Someone posted this six things to watch. I'm all for getting people to read your articles, whoever did this, but there's only one thing to watch here, and that's Derrick Henry rushing the ball 35 times. What 6 things do we have to watch for? Whoever wrote this article should be on national TV, should be all over the world, because if you're finding 6 interesting things to talk about Jacksonville versus Tennessee, I love you. I'm taking the Titans. Take Derrick Henry to have a monster game here, 30-23. Okay, Houston Texan, no one cares about this game. 1-9 at the 9-3 Dallas Cowboys. Take the Texans to get blown out here. I like the Cowboys to win 44-10. We got the big matchup of the day. We have the 5-7 Browns at the 8-4 Bengals. Cleveland has won 5 straight. 8 out of 9 against these guys. 8 out of 9 against the Bengals. But I've been saying it since about week 5. There's something special brewing in Cincinnati. I like the Bengals to win this game and break the 5-game losing streak. I think Cincinnati is the best team in the AFC. Yeah, the best team in the AFC. And finally, we have 2 last games here. Chiefs at Broncos. It's really pathetic that the Chiefs are number 1 in offense, 29.2, and the Broncos are last in offense, averaging 13.8 points per game. Take the Chiefs here in a blowout, 30-17. In a game that most people feel is the game of the week, the 6-6 Bucks at the 49ers. Look, the Bucks are bad, and it's partly because of Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is 24-40 as a head coach. I mean, he was 24-40 with the Jets. He's now 6-6 with the Bucks. It's just terrible, man. He is in the mode of Wade Phillips, in the mode of Rex Ryan, a coordinator who is just not a good coach. I don't care that Brock Purdy is starting Mr. Irrelevant. For those of you who don't know what Mr. Irrelevant is, it's the last player drafted each year in the NFL draft. Brock Purdy out of Iowa State was the last player drafted by the 49ers this year. They're going to win this game 23-20. And finally, the Carolina Panthers at the Seahawks. I like the Seahawks and Geno Smith here. Pretty decisive game, 33-17. Again, I am 120-57 picking NFL games, 120-57 picking NFL games. When we come back, Pat Benson Jr. is going to join us. Can't wait to have him on to talk about my Hawks. You're watching the full Monte Sports Show live on YouTube.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build a cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. # built for the wild.
So one of the things we're going to do here is I'm going to talk about the Mets and Brandon Nimmo signing at the end of the show. You definitely want to stay tuned for that. Let's bring him on. Writer for Fan Nation, Pat Benson, who covers the Hawks. Pat, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Monty. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, love having you on. Anytime I can talk Hawks as we get your little background up here. Let's get right to it. First off, Pat, 13-13 in the Eastern Conference Final. Let's start with the young guns right now. Let's start with Jalen Johnson and A.J. Griffin out of Duke. Thit's funny. Jeff Van Gundy, when he was coaching the Knicks, would always say, oh, you can't play rookies. You can't play rookies. That has changed. I know early on he wasn't playing these guys. I'm talking about Nate McMillan. But what do you like about these young kids? One of the things that I see is they have no fear. They're playing with confidence.
Yeah, well, first, let me just say I love the Van Gundy brothers, but I think that might have been an older mentality, older mindset because the league used to be a lot older, and now
Right.
it's just, it's moved in a much younger direction. It's a younger players' league now. So I've been pleasantly surprised. The lack of depth on the team and the injuries have forced Nate McMillan's hand, and he's had to rely more on Jalen Johnson in his second year. And AJ Griffin has just been a totally pleasant surprise. He's come out of nowhere. We didn't see him during the summer league. Didn't see much of him during the preseason due to injuries, and it was obviously a huge concern. He had his injury history at Duke, but he has really come out of nowhere and played very well in his rookie season. And I think he's poised to be on an all rookie team. I know it's December, but I think he will be an all NBA rookie.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point because obviously Hunter is out right now. We'll get to that in a minute. John Collins is out. Do you see these two young guys as the future small forward, power forward, shooting guard? I know they have DeJounte Murray and Trae Young.
Yeah.
We'll get to that as well. But do you see these guys 2, 3 years down the road as being starters?
It's certainly a possibility. I'm very confident with that with AJ Griffin. He's shown so much in such a short amount of time. I love John Collins, but it seems like the team is just hell bent on trading him. So that would open up a position for Jalen Johnson, who's had his moments so far this season. He's still learning on the job. Both he and Griffin are young, super young. So yeah, I could absolutely wrap my mind around that idea.
I have a friend of mine, Jared, who was on my show a couple of weeks ago. He's a 49er fan, and he can't believe how year in and year out injuries just plague that team. I don't believe in jinxes. I don't believe in curses, but there's something to be said, right? You started the season with no Bogdanovich, who played a great game the other night. DeJounte Murray's going to miss at least 3 weeks. You don't have DeAndre Hunter. John Collins is out. As someone who covers this team on a daily basis, Pat, what is the morale like? Is it just like the walking wounded, or is it something of the effect like, hey, we have confidence in our guys, next man up? To be honest, the only guy who's always healthy for this team is Trae Young.
That's a great point. Well, to be honest, right now the vibes aren't great in Atlanta. Trae Young he's had his disagreements with Nate McMillan,
Yeah.
and that turned into this whole kerfluffle online. So that wasn't great. So right now the vibes could be better, no doubt. But they all adopt the next man up mentality. They're professionals, and they're not going to cry about injuries because it's just a fact of sports, especially the NBA in an 82 game season. Players are going to get injured. So we'll see what they look like tonight. They fought hard against the Brooklyn Nets, almost upset them despite being so shorthanded on Friday night. They got a classic performance out of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and Atlanta still almost overcame that to win. Tonight we should see what they look like at home against the Chicago Bulls. If they lose, they go under 500, which is not great at this point in the season.
Yeah, they're seventh right now in the conference, still in the playoff hunt. All right, so I like Clint Capella. One of the things I have a problem with Kristaps Porzingis, who's had a great year in Washington, kind of found a home, but he really hasn't developed his game. No low post moves. I look at Rudy Gobert, the same thing. Just really doesn't have a face-up jump shot. No low post moves. I look at Clint Capella, who's been beyond productive. 12 points a game, 12.2 rebounds, 61%. Hasn't really developed a low post game, but in the system of the high pick and roll, he's been phenomenal. But the problem is he's only playing 27 minutes a game. He doesn't play enough.
Yeah, no, as always, you've done your homework on this team. Clint Capella, he thrives in that pick and roll scenario. He and Trae Young, they just have a symbiotic relationship where they can just read each other's minds. And he really eats thanks to Trae Young. So I guess maybe he doesn't need a fully fleshed out interior post game like we used to see back in the day. But either way, he still gets buckets, and he has improved so much from last year. I think last year injuries really dogged him a lot.
I think him being healthy, you could see he's got hop to his step. He's a good defender. Do you think the reason why he doesn't really play that many minutes and they go small, because he's not a stretch four? He's not going to shoot the three like a John Collins would? Or do you think his lack of I guess outside scoring is why he's not playing as many minutes?
Yeah, it could be that. They also want to free up time for Onyeka Okongwu.
Right.
Everybody in Atlanta is super high on him, and I think that could be part of it. Also, Nate McMillan says play as hard as you can, and then just tug on your jersey when you need to come out. So I think they would rather you go at 100% rather than just try to coast. And Clint Capella, for being a big man, he's got such a great motor. He always runs past all of his opponents, so that could be part of it. And either way, just a great. He's looking more like 2021 Clint
Yeah.
Capella compared to last year, which is he's been the unsung hero in Atlanta so far.
And we saw when James Harden was in the top assists in Houston,
Mhm.
how Clint Capella actually thrived in that role. He's doing it, like you said, with Trey Young. One of the things that really people don't seem to respect Trey Young, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I wrote an article for Team NBS about the best dynamic duo in the NBA. Obviously, I had the Celtics, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, another Duke guy, Jason Tatum, as number one. I got these guys at number two. Let's just look at some of the stats here. Combined, 48 points per game, 9 rebounds, 8.2 assists. I'm sorry, 9.2 rebounds,
Mhm.
8 assists. They are doing. Actually, I got that stat wrong. It's 48 points, 15 assists, 9 rebounds. They are stealing the ball. I think
Yeah.
DeJounte Murray is one of the best defenders with stealing the ball in the league. Why do you think people thought, hey, it wasn't going to mix? They're not going to have chemistry. This they seem like I know Trey Young went out to visit him in the offseason and they played a couple games in a summer league, went out to dinner. This has been in my long-winded introduction here. This has been chemistry right off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think their games complement each other well. DeJounte is just super athletic, super defensive minded, and a distributor. And Trey Young, he helps cover up a little bit of Trey Young's shortcomings on the defensive end.
Great point.
And they don't seem to be taking your turn, my turn approach on offense. They seem to kind of flow off each other offensively. So the advanced stats show that they play well with each other. Both on the floor at the same time. So yeah, it's been good. The only thing is Trey's numbers have been sagging a little bit. He's been dealing with the worst shooting slump of his career. But if you know Trey Young, you know he's going to snap out of it eventually. He's too hardworking. He's too determined not to do that. And then those numbers are really going to jump up. So it's just a matter of time till Trey kind of regresses towards the mean in a good way.
Andrea brings up a good point here. I know he got hurt, Danilo Gallinari.
Mhm.
Didn't want to see him go. But the trade that just didn't make any sense to me was just letting Kevin Herter go, who's thriving in an offensive system. And we'll talk about this in a minute. Mike Brown spent years with Steve Kerr as an assistant. And one
Yeah.
of the things that Mike Brown struggled with when he had LeBron was ball movement. You watch that Sacramento King team, they're constantly cutting, moving. Kevin Herter has been phenomenal for them. Were you disappointed to see him go?
Yeah, so y'all both make good points. I think Trey's offensive shortcomings this year could be partially attributed to not having more outside shooters on the floor, less spacing, and Danilo Gallinari was an ultra skilled, great shooter, so I think that had something to do with it. At the end of the day, you're still going to make that Dejounte Murray trade. So as for Kevin Herter, yeah, I mean it was shocking at the time. He even said it was his welcome to the NBA moment, and he'd been in the league for 4 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was shocking. It was clearly a cost cutting measure, which was really disappointing. Atlanta has, as soon as they made the Dejounte Murray trade, within a couple of days, they immediately went on a cutting spree, and you can just trace back every single roster move they've made, and it's been with the intention of getting under that luxury tax. So congrats to the ownership. You're not paying the luxury tax, but now you're 13-13, and you have the worst outside shooting team in the NBA.
Yeah, which is shocking when you think about, and I said this before. Dejounte Murray, he's a 20.8 rebound, 7 assist guy consistently. He's going to get you steals. I just thought with Kevin Herter there and Bogey there, I'm like, man, you could go small with those four guys and put Clint Capella in the middle or whatever. And how you going to guard him? It's pick your poison, right? If you had because I know last year watching Kevin Herter and Bogey on the same floor, sometimes it was magical.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's bittersweet. We love to see Kevin Herter succeeding out in Sacramento, but it's like, man, why couldn't I be here in Atlanta? It
Right,
could really
right.
be it really could be special. And you see Justin Holiday, he's in and out of the rotation. And I guess they got a draft pick as well, which kind of helps replenish their draft capital after losing so many in the DeJounte Murray trade. But in retrospect, man, that has really been a horrible trade.
And it's funny too because when he came back to play, they gave him a standing ovation. The fans are not angry with him. We all thought the same thing. Like, why the hell did you have to get rid of that guy?
Yeah, no, it was totally shocking, and he still loved Atlanta and all the players. And you would just watch, it was like a parade of coaches, staff, players, security guard. Everybody came up to show love to Kevin Herter when Sacramento made their one trip to Atlanta a few weeks ago, which was it was great to see, but it was shocking. We'll see what the front office does. Throughout the season, closer to the trade deadline, maybe they'll go out and add some pieces. But looking back at it, everything from the Kevin Herter trade to signing Tyrese Martin to a full NBA contract instead of a two-way contract, not using their biannual exception,
Yeah.
Trading Mo Harkless, every single thing they've done has been to avoid the luxury tax, which is unfair to the players, coaches, and most importantly, the fans.
Yeah, when you have cheap ownership, but it could work in reverse, right? The Knicks go out and overpay for everyone and they never win. So, I get both ends of it. You hate to see quality play. And again, I don't mind trading a veteran like a Danilo Gallinari, who's a great locker room guy. By the way, Danilo Gallinari was their best post-up player last year, and no one wanted to talk about that. So that could be
Well, yeah.
another reason why their shooting has struggled because he'd go down in the post and he developed that over the years. He was their best post player.
Oh yeah, he was surgical in the
Yeah.
post. He's such a finely skilled player, and really they really became dependent on him as the season progressed. He was one of the few players getting buckets during that dreadful Miami Heat series. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was tough, and I was shocked at the time that it was Danilo Gallinari included in the trade for DeJounte Murray instead of John Collins because
Yeah.
logically you're like, well, we know they want to get rid of John Collins, but San Antonio was just in a different phase, rebuilding, and they just wanted to really just capitalize off DeJounte Murray, get draft picks, and clean up their books.
All right. So let's talk about Trae Young. Obviously, he's my favorite player in the NBA, as I put
Same.
up his little thing here. But I've never seen disrespect for this guy. It's almost like, yeah, he's good, but. Yeah, he's good, but. Here's what we know. There's no one in the league since 2018 that has more 20 points, double-digit assists than this guy.
Mhm.
People keep trying to tell me, oh, Trae Young, he's got to get his players more involved. He was the first player since Nate Tiny Archibald in the early 70s last year to lead the league in most points and most assists.
Yeah,
Now, you could say he's not a great defender. I don't think John Morant's a great defender. Luka's
no,
not a great defender. Steph Curry's
Kyrie,
not a great defender. So
no.
why doesn't this guy get national respect?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question because they've turned him into this villain because he's not shy of playing on the road. But really, when you look at, one, he's a great player, and then more importantly, he's a great guy. Everything he does off the court, he's not a villain. I mean, he's
Yeah.
a philanthropist and he's an activist, and he's so great towards fans. Got countless videos of him just sitting there signing autographs before games. So I don't understand it, but maybe that's par for the course on your road to becoming one of the faces of the NBA, which I'm very confident he will be. After in the next few years when LeBron and Stephen Curry, KD, and these guys kind of phase out and retire, I think Trey, Ja Morant, Luka, I think they'll be the next guys up, and they'll be the faces of the NBA.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about being the face of the NBA. And I understand Atlanta's a smaller market, but let's be honest, Dallas, to be honest with you, Dallas is always the second class citizens because they have the Cowboys there, right? So it's not
Yeah.
like people are looking at, I always wondered why a free agency is not a hotbed for the Dallas Mavericks. Mark Cuban treats his guys like gold, state of the art facility, no,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
state tax there. So, but I just don't understand where people are coming from. Where Trae Young, everywhere he's gone. He was the first player in the history of college basketball to lead as a freshman the country in scoring and assists. He's not a super hog player like an Allen Iverson who's just
No,
going to dribble, dribble, dribble. He's not a ball stopper like Luka is. Like Trae Young doesn't over dribble. You know when you're open, he's going to hit you. Is there anything that you've seen from him other than maybe defense and his shooting slump that say this guy's not a top 10 player?
no, no, nothing at all. Nothing at all. And he's still young. He's 24 years old. He hasn't even come close to peaking. And you hit on something which I overlooked is his passing. I think people they think about the shots from the logo and everything else, but he's got eyes in the back of his head. Not only does he rack up the assists, but the actual passes he makes are just so difficult. Just sit down for everybody who's not a big Hawks fan, I understand, but sit down and watch a game where Trae Young's playing. You'll be amazed. He takes off all the time, jumps, has no idea where he's going with it, and then he'll find a wraparound pass or a skip pass behind the back pass. I mean, and he's said before the assist is his favorite statistic, and I'm not surprised. He is really an underrated passer as well.
Well, and it's funny because someone said on the ESPN broadcast about a week ago, they said it's amazing how Trae Young gets to the paint and his floater is that of like an Isaiah. It's so beautiful, but you don't know if it's floating to the basket. He has the same motion as the shot or the lob to Clint Capella or a John Collins.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even know. Like I'll watch it. I'm like, oh, Clint Capella throws it down for the dunk, or oh, that actually went
I
in.
just see that.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I watch every single game, sometimes twice. So it's I know it's tough for defenders, but that's an excellent point. There, it's hard to tell whether the floater whether it's going in as a shot or as an alley oop or what he's going to do. He's very tough to defend and just a super exciting player. And can't wait to see him snap out of this cold streak he's been in, which I think he's already starting to do. He had
He has
33
shot better
points
over the
against
last. Yeah,
Brooklyn.
he
Yeah,
has
yeah,
shot
yeah,
better. And I
yeah,
tell people all the time he's over 88% shooting from the free throw line.
yeah.
So, he'll get your points. He contributes. One of the things you brought up, I talked about Brittany Griner early on in the show
Mhm,
and how she does so much for her community.
mhm,
Trae Young is, and again, a lot has to do with his upbringing, very respectful,
mhm.
gives back constantly. Even in that press conference, we'll get into it in a minute, there was a story, and Pat can elaborate on this, where it was rumored that Trae Young was nursing an injury during a shoot around, right?
Mhm.
Correct? Did I got the
Yeah,
story correct? And
yeah,
Nate McMillan basically said to him, "Hey, either you come to the shoot around or you don't play." And they kept pressing Trae Young, and the maturity and you could tell he was getting frustrated. He's
yeah.
like, "I want to keep this in house." But talk about how he is with the media, with you guys, how professional he is, even when things are going bad.
Oh, he's a total sweetheart because he always is so he takes his time with everybody in the media. And I know I've asked him some dumb questions before, and he doesn't turn around and dunk on me. He'll do his best to answer it, and sometimes he'll even preface it, in a way to be more understanding. So it's hard to find a guy who's more generous with his time and nicer to the media than Trey. And yeah, I think it's yeah, I know it's a local reporter who was kind of pressing him, trying to get some details, and it's like he's not really going to divulge that information. He's not going to give you that story or anything. He really is just trying to quell this negative story that somebody leaked to the media. So yeah, I mean, it was just a disagreement, or maybe Nate McMillan was correct in just saying it was a miscommunication. Maybe you interpret something one kind of way, and that's not what the other person means. And when you work with somebody, and when you're an NBA player and coach, you basically live with that person as well. There are going to be disagreements. It is what it is, and Andrea's right. He's small, but he is feisty, no doubt. Definitely on the court. Nice
It
in
is
press
because I've
conferences.
seen him go up to people who are
Yeah,
3 times the size of him and not back down at all. So
yeah,
one of the things that I always say with my coaches, with my president, I don't want anything leaking, right? I
yeah.
was so shocked early this year that the Draymond Green video leaked of him
Mhm.
punching Jordan Poole because that is not how Steve Kerr operates. That's not where he's from. San Antonio for years, you kept it quiet. How did this story leak? And again, I grew up a Jet fan. Under Rex Ryan, stuff would leak out all the time because he was an incompetent head coach. Is this an indictment on the organization for a story like this to leak when it never should have? It became more than it was. It happens all the time. Trey
Yeah.
Young's all the time. We're a family. We argue. But stuff like that can't leak, especially if you're struggling.
Yeah, I have no idea which direction this leaked from. There are all kinds of competing theories. Was it somebody? Was it an anti-Trey area? Was it a anti-Nate McMillan faction? I have no idea which area it leaked from. So but like you said, it's a family. These guys, I think the general population would be shocked at how much these guys go back and forth behind closed doors in the locker room, and just whenever it gets out, it's shocking. But these guys, they go at each other the way we send passive aggressive emails at work. So that's just that's how they communicate. Sometimes, long season and everybody's frustrated at times.
We had when I was coaching my last year coaching, we had this guy on the team. He was one of our better players. He was kind of a bully, and there was
Mhm.
this one guy who always stood up to him. The one guy, even though the guy was a bully, the biggest, strongest, the one guy, his name was Rock, and Rock
Mhm.
grew up with this guy. He's like, "You're a fake tough guy." And one time during practice late in the year, Rock said, "I've had enough of your, you know what," and he
Mhm.
pushed him, and they
Yeah.
got to fighting, and we let Rock beat him up a little bit,
Yeah.
just to show everyone enough is enough. That
Yeah.
happens all the time in sports. I got into heated exchanges on the bench with
Mhm.
assistant coaches, with, with,
Yeah.
with the head coach. It happens all the time, especially with guys like this who are all alpha males, who are all super competitive. But again, I give Trey Young all the credit in the world because that reporter was trying to bait him,
Yeah.
coming at him from every angle like a
Yeah.
spider monkey to try to
Yeah.
get him to say something. And Trey was just like, "Hey, man, I know you
Wow.
have a job to do." He kept his cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. These guys, they've been basically mini celebrities since middle school. So they've been getting,
Yeah.
they've got years and so many reps of dealing with the media. It's like it's really going to be tough to get a soundbite out of some of these guys.
Yeah, and I will say this: Trey's family has really done a good job in preparing him. I've
Yeah.
dealt with his family a little bit via emails here and there, so they've done a good job. Okay, I don't know how much you can say because obviously you cover the Atlanta Hawks, so I'm just going to say this: Nate McMillan's offense is straight out of 1985.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a high screen and roll. Now, as an assistant coach who spent years and was very successful, our job is to watch other teams, scout them on film, and then you see what they run, say, "Hey, we can implement this." How in the world does not an assistant coach or Nate McMillan, who spent years in the NBA, not watch what the Nets are doing with off the ball screens for Kyrie, not watch what Golden State does for Steph Curry, and say, "Hey, we got to get Trey Young easier open shots, especially if he's struggling to shoot, than just a one-on-one screen and roll." I watch this offense every game and I lose my mind. I've posted TikTok videos of their offense, how it's just Trey Young or DeJounte Murray, and basically DeJounte Murray's dribbling the ball, Trey Young standing there, and there's no screens off the ball. This
Yeah.
offense makes me crazy, Pat. I
Yeah.
think they've won 13 games despite Nate McMillan. Am I totally wrong? Yes or no?
No, well, I'll say this. I'd be disingenuous if I was saying I'm not a huge X and O's guys, and I don't want to claim to say I know more than Nate McMillan. But what I can do is interpret the statistics, and the statistics bear out an unhealthy shot diet and a clunky offense. Way too many mid-range shots. They can't stretch the floor as it is because of the way the roster is constructed. They settle. They don't get to the free throw line enough. So he knows more X's and O's than I do, but I can interpret the stats and say right now the offense isn't working. And you hit on an excellent point. There's far too much standing around. Trey could possibly do a better job of moving around off the ball when DeJounte has the ball. But yeah, the system is outdated. And even this past week, former NBA players Matt Barnes
Yeah,
and
come on,
Jalen McCoy on their podcast, they tore into Nate McMillan and they said that the game had passed him by back in 1998.
yeah.
So that's not what you want to hear as a Hawks fan. So yeah, I mean, right now the statistics show that the offense isn't working right.
But again, as I put up their peach background here that they did for the throwback uniforms, Pat, as a coach, you always want to evolve, right? And that's why I brought up Mike Brown earlier. Mike Brown was Mr. One-on-one when he had LeBron, and rightly so. LeBron's going to make the right decision. But sitting on the bench learning, I mean, how, as Hawk fans, I mean, I see it all the time now. After every loss, I understand they have injuries, but I've been saying this for 2 years about Nate McMillan. Is he on the hot seat?
Yeah, absolutely. He is this year, no doubt. We'll see, right? I would be shocked if they made that move in December, but perhaps February, perhaps a little bit later, maybe March. Lloyd Pierce was fired on March 1st,
Right.
2021, so hasn't even been 2 years. But absolutely, especially now that he's had this disagreement with Trey, it's started. The cracks are starting to show a little bit. If that gets worse, winning solves all problems. But if they continue to lose, if they continue to play 500 basketball, then yeah, absolutely, Nate McMillan would be the first person to go.
You're around this team all the time. They appear to like each other. They appear to have great chemistry. I know Trey always says, when John Collins, when DeAndre Hunter signed his contract, he's like, I'm so glad my guys are getting paid.
Yeah.
Is Trey the leader? Is DeJounte the leader? Is it someone else? Or is it just a group of guys who all work together? Because they appear from the outside looking in, you're there all the time, that these guys really like and care about one another.
It's Trey's team, but DeJounte is also a major leader, big vocal leader, and he's been such a positive infusion into the locker room. DeJounte really, he we can't say enough good things about him. But yeah, it's still Trey's team. They all seem to like each other. I think they get along well on and off the court. So yeah, I don't think there's any locker room conflict among the players.
Do they hold each other accountable when someone makes a mistake? We see the Golden State Warriors go at it all the time where there's a defensive assignment blown. Do you ever see guys getting on one another, but in a constructive criticism type of way?
Um, a little bit. You'll see, like, if you watch them give up a bucket, you may see them turn around and say something. They're not as outgoing
Demonstrative.
or as boisterous as like a
Right.
Draymond Green for the Golden State Warriors.
Gotcha.
And everybody's got their own personality. So yeah, and I'm sure that we've heard that they'll talk to each other about that sort of thing in the film room. That's been well documented as well. So yeah, they hold each other accountable, but they're still a young team. And
Yeah.
one possible aspect that they may have overlooked in the roster construction is there's not many veteran presence. Not many
Yeah,
veterans
losing
present.
Gallinari is
Yeah,
definitely a locker room guy who knows
yeah,
the ins and outs of the NBA, a solid professional. Listen, I'm just going to come out and say it. I want this guy to be named the head coach.
there we go.
Another Duke guy, obviously, did a tremendous job in Utah.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm leaning. What is your ceiling for this team if they are healthy? If Nate McMillan changes his offense around a little bit, what is your ceiling for this team?
I think the conference finals, if everything goes right, they're still not ready to knock off Boston or Milwaukee, probably not Brooklyn in a 4-game series. So I think conference finals, if everything goes right. But right now they're so far from that. They're
Yeah.
just and part of everything going right, they would probably still have to go out and be aggressive at the trade deadline and try to add another piece because
Yeah.
you can't pinch pennies on your way to a championship.
Listen, I brought this up a few weeks ago. I had someone on who covers the Cincinnati Bengals for Team NBS Media. And
Mhm.
up until I think 1990, the Bengals training camp facility had water fountains. They didn't even have bottled water because the ownership was so
Yeah.
cheap. I'm not saying the Hawks are at that level, but yeah, especially when you have these young group of guys, you got to be super aggressive at the trading deadline. But for me, on the outside looking in, it's been a disappointing first 26 games.
Oh yeah, absolutely disappointing. And at least last year's team, for all their flaws, at least they were fun and they put up a lot of points. This
Yeah.
year it's been a bit of a drag so far. But as you know, the 82-game season is long. It goes in these different stints. So December, January could be different than the way October and November were. And hopefully, once they get healthy, they can start kind of getting their chemistry back together. So we'll see. But you're right. So far, the season not been great.
Yeah, and listen, getting Bogdanovich back, the guy's one of the best shooters in
Yeah.
the NBA. He makes a lot of offensive woes go away. Okay, so you say maybe Eastern Conference Finals. I had them going 50 and 32. I guess is that still in reach or no way?
Yeah, right now I too had them going way over the over. I think Vegas might have set it at 40 or 45 wins, and I was closer to 50, like you said. So right now, not impossible. It's certainly plausible, but not a huge body of evidence to support that. So my guess is, per usual, Vegas is probably right.
All right, so let's talk more about the NBA. My clear-cut choice for the MVP is Jason Tatum. I think this guy has become a very good two-way player. He has gained a lot of muscle, as we've seen Giannis do over the years,
Mhm.
and he's pretty dominant. I think Dallas is way too heavy with Luca. I think he's going to be exhausted at the end of the year. Who's your MVP right now, early on?
Yeah, I'd have to go with Tatum as well. I was really expecting Boston to regress this season because they had all that drama unfold right
Yeah,
before the season started, coaching change, and I feel like Jason Tatum probably deserves the lion's share of the credit for how the season has gone so far. Also, their new coach as well. He's done a great job. But yeah, I'd say just because I was expecting Boston to implode and they haven't missed a beat. So yeah, Jason Tatum is my number one pick as well. And then still, I'm still high on Giannis. I still
yeah,
think he's probably the closest thing we've seen to a modern day Shaq. So,
yeah, yeah.
I
That's
feel
true.
like he'd be up there on my list as well. Let's not sleep on Stephen Curry. I know Golden State hasn't been playing great, especially on the road, but until somebody knocks off one of those guys, that's probably my top three.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's very early on, but someone like Giannis, when you watch him play and how I love guys who just develop their game every year.
Yeah.
Like he still struggles from the free throw line. He's improved his 3-point shooting. He's one. He makes LeBron James. They were standing side by side on the free throw line. He makes LeBron James look small.
Oh man, yeah, they call him the Greek Freak for a reason. I mean,
Yeah,
he's just built. He's literally built different, and like you said, he gets better each season, which I love. He's never complacent. He, by all accounts, is a great locker room guy, great team guy, and you can just tell the gravity on the floor changes. It's different when he has the ball in his hand, and he changes it in a way that very few players can, other than like Stephen Curry. And obviously, they're coming from very different builds, but
yeah.
yeah. Super high on Giannis.
And by the way, just for everyone out there, Chris Middleton is probably the best Robin to
Yeah.
Giannis's Batman. Chris Middleton in a 5-game series is going to get you 25, 8, and 5, and he'll take the big shot. That's the one thing you still worry about Giannis in a tight playoff game. Can he create off the dribble in half court or not commit a charge? You know what I'm saying? Because a
Yeah,
lot of
absolutely.
times,
And like you said, with Chris Middleton, he missed several games to
yeah,
start the season with the wrist injury, and you got him, and you got Drew Holiday as well, who's really coming into his own in the league. So yeah, absolutely, Milwaukee's a force to be reckoned with, especially once spring rolls around.
yeah, and obviously Drew Holiday is a great point guard, two-way player,
Mhm.
won a
Mhm.
championship. So I wrote an article saying that the Miami Heat need to break up. It's basically Jimmy Butler. It
Yeah.
needs to be the best player on the
Mhm.
court for 7 games in a 7-game series. Tyler Hero's a nice player, but
Mhm.
I just mentioned Chris Middleton. Tyler Hero is not a James Harden. He's not a Kyrie Irving. He's not a Jalen Brown. He's a nice player, but he's not a number 2 option. I don't have Miami going making a deep playoff run. Who is your 2 in the Eastern Conference Finals this year? Who do you like right now?
Right now, I probably would default to Milwaukee, Brooklyn, the same basically two looming
Wow, so you're not
monsters.
going with Boston.
No, I'm still going to go with I'm a star heavy guy. Like I just saw Kevin Durant and Kyrie torch Atlanta
Yeah.
for. That's right, great things coming out of Wisconsin. I just saw what KD and Kyrie are capable of, and Kyrie hasn't missed a game since he's come
Yeah.
back from suspension. He's been just on a tear. So right now, I'm going to defer to them,
My
and then
concern is with them is just you look at Boston and Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon is not even starting for them. You look at their
yeah,
bench, Boston is much
yeah.
deeper. I mean, I do like Curry, I do like Ben Simmons, but they are role players. So my concern with Brooklyn is just they're way too top heavy. And if one of those guys has a nagging injury, a hurt ankle, something like that, and they're not 100%, I don't think they're going to get through the Eastern Conference woes.
Or a bad tweet. If
Yeah.
one their one tweet away, you don't know who
Yeah.
it's coming from, and
That's a
that
good
whole
point.
team is upended. So no, I think that's a very valid point. Who's going to be on the floor or not, and they are extremely top heavy. I think that's a great point. And back to your original point about Miami, probably so. Things don't seem to be working out well. Maybe moving Kyle Lowry also could help
And
rejuvenate that team.
one of the reasons I say this, Pat Riley's 77. right? I know
Yeah.
he looks young, he's in great shape, but Pat Riley doesn't want to take 4 or 5 years to rebuild. Getting Kyle Lowry, they thought they were getting the Toronto Raptors Kyle Lowry. They have not gotten him. Okay, let's move to the West. We know Golden State has struggled. I love the Portland Trailblazers. I think Jeremy Grant is the most underrated player. He's, I think, third in three-point field goal percentage. Simons has become a very good number two, and we know how good we thought Portland was rebuilding. They're not. So I like Portland and Golden State to come out of the West.
Oh wow, yeah, I like that. I really like, I love Dame, I love Portland, but I'll probably go Memphis, Golden State as well. I think,
Okay.
and they've already got the budding rivalry that
I
dates
know.
back now about a year or two. So I really think the Western Conference is wide open. I'm going to default to Golden State until Stephen Curry and those guys phase out, and then I think it could be Memphis's time to really challenge Golden State. So that's the two teams I'm going to go with.
Okay, one of the problems I have with Memphis, and I want to get your take on this. We have another couple minutes left talking with Pat Benson here. Pat, the problem I have with Memphis is John Morant has a slight build. It's the same reason I have with Luka. Luka's much bigger, but Luka takes a pounding. I don't worry about Steph Curry. I don't worry about Trae Young. I don't worry about Kyrie Irving because they don't need to get to the rim.
Yeah.
John Morant wants to dunk, and his body is not built for that. So we saw in the postseason last year, he gets hit a couple times. I don't like my point guards, whether they're Magic Johnson, Luka, 6'9", 240, taking a pounding. John Morant takes a beating because he wants to dunk over people all the time.
Yeah, I hold my breath. I'm sure a lot of folks in Memphis do as well. Every time Jaw tries to dunk over half the team, no doubt.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully that's something that he can be careful about. But even when he misses games, Memphis still wins. We look at what they did last year, and they didn't lose many games when Morant was dealing with injuries. So they've really got a well-rounded team, and just as long as the basketball gods, continue to smile on John Morant, and hopefully he stays healthy, then he's going to keep doing his thing.
So I know you're going to be focused on the Hawks today, but at 3:30 today, there's a rivalry brewing. Zion dunked the ball against the Phoenix Suns at the end of the game when they blew them out. The Suns have been terrible the last 3 or 4 games. They interviewed Zion. He said, look, this is not my thing, but they sent us home last year. We lost in the playoffs. I wasn't playing, but I saw my guys crying in the locker room. So, yeah, I don't like the team. It was out of character for me, but we want to send them the message. They play at 3:30 today. I'm a football guy and a basketball guy. I'm going to be tuning in. Do you think there's anything wrong with Zion dunking with less than 5 seconds left in the game on a wide
Not at
open field?
all. Not at all. I love it. The NBA needs more of it. Right now, football is eating in the NBA's lunch, both pro and college. So we need rivalries. We need dunks. We need trash talk going on both sides. And even better, Zion is the perfect guy to deliver that because he's a household name. He's got this larger than life build and persona. And I'm glad he's back on the court, and I'm glad he's healthy. It's perfect. I feel like the NBA should send Zion a bonus for that dunk because they got a little bit of positive press, and it wasn't because of drama or trade rumors. Like we need something exciting, and we need rivalries. There's so much player movement now that it's awesome for July. It's awesome for getting clicks in July.
Right.
It really dilutes the product, and it dilutes the rivalries on the court during the season. So we need more of that. I feel like Zion deserves a bonus for that dunk.
That's a great point. One of my last year's coaching, I beat my former coach, who I was an assistant, and we blew them out.
Nice.
And what happened was, at the end of the game, my third string or second string, because I used to play 10 guys, so we played these guys, and they stole the ball, they made a layup, and then they stole the ball. My guy shot up a 3. We were up by like 30.
Yeah.
And the coach called me after the game on the phone and said, "Hey man, you're up 30. You got to." I go, "You know what? Defend better." I said, I'm not going to tell my guys not to play when they bust their ass in practice. I'm going to tell them not to shoot. I'm not now. If there's 10 seconds left, but this was in the course of like the last 2 minutes of the game, and I bring that up because C.J. McCullough said after the press conference, he goes, "You don't want Zion Duncan? Get your ass back on defense."
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I don't think it was. I don't think it was anything unsportsmanlike. He wasn't throwing elbows or doing anything nasty that could have gotten somebody from the other team injured. We're talking about two professional teams on the same level. It's not high school seniors playing the freshman team across town. I mean, these guys are on the same level. So yeah, there's nothing unsportsmanlike about that.
My friend Bill, and then we'll let you go ask a question. Obviously, he covers the Hawks. Give us some players that you love watching in the NBA when you're not covering the Hawks.
Stephen Curry is definitely at the top of the list. I'm really trying to absorb as much of that Golden State Warriors dynasty right now while they're still in their prime. Getting a little bit older. So I'm really just trying to absorb that as much as possible. So
Let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Yeah.
You just alienated my entire chat room because they all hate the Warriors.
That's fine, and I'm all cards on the table. I'm a Lakers fan. You know me.
Okay.
We talked before. I grew up. I'm a Kobe guy, so I like the Lakers, but I'm not a huge fan of this iteration of the Lakers. I'm not a big Westbrook guy, and the LeBron AD pairing is what it is. So
they have played better of late. And what I've noticed, even though they're losing, they're actually competing. It's taken him a while to implement his team, but they're starting to take over his personality. They have some feistiness. They're playing better. And do you think the Lakers make the playoffs if they don't make a trade? I think they do.
Yeah, I think they'll make the playoffs, especially when the majority of teams do, at least the play-in, just finishing the top 10. A lot of teams are going to be racing towards the bottom. So, yeah, George, I'm with you. I think that the Lakers will.
George is a diehard Laker fan. He doesn't like this team at all.
There we go. There we go. So, yeah, no, I'm with you. I think they are improving. They're playing better. And, so definitely try to stay up and watch some West Coast games whenever I can. And then, of course, it seems like
Pat,
the Nets are on
Westbrook?
TV.
What are we doing?
Oh, we're going to trade him. We're going to trade him as soon as we can. Okay. I mean, I'll drive him to the airport.
What are they waiting for?
He's playing
what are they
better.
Waiting for?
Yeah. I don't know. That's going to be tough. But I think he might turn from a liability to an asset closer to the trade deadline. Hopefully, bump up his trade stock a little bit, and then jettison.
I know he hates it. He hates Utah. He's had numerous fights with fans there. Yeah. But for Westbrook to succeed, he needs to go to some place like that when they're not going to win a championship, but they're going to get you 50 wins because Russell Westbrook, as the number one guy, can get you 50 wins. What he can't do is play in a half-court offense because his jump shot is so terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And to make matters worse, LeBron's shooting splits haven't been great either. And so, I'm with you. I think I would like to see – I'll give you gas money back. Yeah, I would like to probably see them make a trade, hopefully move on from Westbrook and then try to make a playoff push. But
where do you see them – where would he be a fit?
Oh, man. I don't know. Like you said,
he's not going back to Oklahoma's young. Yeah. They're up and coming. Orlando's young and up and coming. The Lakers got to try to trade him. Is a playoff team going to take on Russell Westbrook?
No, absolutely not. I think perhaps, like you said, perhaps a rebuilding team where he can have his reign to do whatever he wants. But trade him to the Clippers, yeah, I'm with you on that.
By the way,
especially with
finish
especially with Kawhi missing so much time, and Paul George has dealt with injuries as well. Maybe the Clippers they'll do us a solid. It would make up for the Zubac trade.
Well, yeah, because he's been playing lights out. By the way, I'm just going to say this. I've been saying it for 2 years. I've written articles about this. Everyone wants to kill Anthony Davis. Kawhi Leonard has stolen money for the Clippers for the last few years. This guy hits a game-winning shot, then he sits 3 games. And, Pat, you know this. When someone is constantly sitting, it's a strain on your coaching staff. It's a strain on your players. How can you go to war with someone who's not even showing up half the time and you don't know why he's injured?
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I think we just saw where the CBA got pushed back another year so we can avoid a work stoppage, which is great. But at a certain point, they got to do something about players sitting out. I don't want to question injuries, but you can look at the league as a whole and see a trend. These guys just don't play. Last night, the Brooklyn Nets sat everybody. Yeah. And, they've got to do something. It's not fair to fans to, pay outrageous ticket prices and for these guys to never play. And shortening the season isn't going to work either because I think if you shorten the season, then they're just going to take the same percentage of games out to sit off.
Well, I've suggested this for basketball, for the NBA. I think they should play 68 games and no
Mhm.
back-to-back nights. That's what I say. Every night, every Tuesday and Thursday, there's two NBA teams playing. Why? There should be because TNT wants to dominate. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to stop these players from sitting down, and this comes from management. Let's be honest, it is not the coaches, it's the ownership who wants to protect their investment. So if you play 68 games and say, okay, if the player doesn't have an injury, they got to play in 64 of them. Listen, in baseball, every Sunday or Monday, a player sits out. Derek Jeter used to sit out all the time because it's too much. What's the answer to load management?
I don't know what the answer is, but honestly, I'm skeptical. I think maybe I'm cynical. I think that if you drop it down to 68 games, and they're going to still, they're
Sit
still
out.
going to just take whatever the new percentage is off, and and you're going to have a new argument. Like, well, it's not healthy. There's stats proving that 42 games are actually what your
Right.
knees need to recover. So I'm skeptical. I'm cynical. I don't know how you legislate that out, and I hate to question players' injuries or their health, but I think some of these dudes just don't like playing basketball. Ben
Yeah.
Simmons being one of them.
Yeah.
He didn't like it at LSU. I don't think he likes it in the pros.
I say this all the time. I know certain players when I was in New York who played for the Jets who it was just a job to them. Like
Yeah.
they would
Oh, for
work
sure.
during this. It's just a job. They don't. Ben Simmons doesn't love basketball. He loves the money. He loves the women. He loves the fame. He loves everything that comes with it. But he doesn't love basketball.
Oh yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just a job for these guys. I think they look at it like, okay, I hit my stat. I think the vast majority, there are some dogs, no doubt, but I think the vast majority of it, it's just a job. They go in, they deal with coworkers they don't like, they deal with questions they don't want to have to deal with. They're going to collect their paycheck. They check the stat line. All right, boom, boom, boom. On to the next game, and it's a little naive to think it's more than that for the vast majority of players. Yeah, no, I agree. The older
Yeah,
players
and
wouldn't sit out like this.
right, but I will say this: someone like LeBron, who's been at the top of his game for 20 years, we're never going to see again. Someone like a Tom Brady, the drive, the desire. They don't care how many champions they've won. They keep coming at you. But you look at the. Let's be honest. Luka Doncic, John Stockton, Luka would foul him out in the second quarter. Luka's 6'9",
Yeah,
250. John Stockton was 6'1", 175. Right? So
yeah.
players may be softer today, but they're bigger, stronger, faster. LeBron James plays all five positions. He's the same size, height-wise, as Patrick Ewing and 50 pounds heavier, and he plays point guard where Patrick Ewing was a glorified center jump shooter. So
And,
players
and
today
wait
are
till Victor Wembanyama. I'm
oh
sorry,
yeah,
I butchered his name. Wait till
yes,
Wemby.
yes.
Wait till Wemby gets to the league, and we have a 7'4" guard running around, and that's the way it goes. These that's just the way it goes. Sports gets more challenging. Players evolve, and the body, the preferred body style changes, and so that's just naturally the way it goes.
Wow. George hates Brady. Brady is playing because he needs money for alimony and child support. Well, and I will say this, the influx of the international players has really, really changed the scope of basketball. You look at here at Embiid, Giannis, Luka, three of the top five arguably players in the game who are really international. And that's why I love the NBA. And we'll end
Yeah,
with this. It's always about inclusion, not
yeah.
exclusion. It
Amen.
welcomes diversity, not pushes it away.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's cool to see. You'll see there. There's legions of fans all over the world. Like, and there are going to be Mavericks fans in Slovenia, and I know that
Yeah.
there are lots of Hawks fans in South America. And it's so cool to just to see a team have regional prominence around the world in different parts of the world. So yeah, that's amazing. And like you said, it's inclusive. They're growing the game. It obviously dates back to the Dream Team in the '92 Olympics. But I think Adam Silver, for all of his missteps, has done a great job of continuing to grow the game. And yeah, I mean, basketball will be fine, and the NBA will be just fine. So it's only going to grow and get better from here.
Pat, we'll end with this, and then we'll see how we can follow and support you. Thank you so much for coming on. Love what you post, whether it's sneakers or Hawk stuff. Always appreciate the time. I said this, and people thought I was crazy. I would take the Redeem Team over the Dream Team for one simple reason. The Redeem Team, most of those guys were in their prime.
Yeah.
The Dream Team, all those guys were past their prime. Magic, Bird, all those guys. Am I crazy for thinking that?
No, you're not. And I'm a Kobe guy, so of
Right.
course I'm taking the Redeem Team.
All
And
right.
You make an excellent point that Larry Bird was laying on the side with a bad back for
Yeah.
most of that. Magic was on his way out of the NBA, and yeah, it was definitely an older roster, just like we talked about earlier. The game's changed; it's a younger players' league, and nobody's stopping 2008 Kobe. He was a man on the mission. He finished the 2007 NBA Finals with a loss. Boom, '08 Olympics. Boom, two NBA Finals wins. So yeah, I mean, Kobe. That was peak powers, Kobe.
And just looking back at that team, if you haven't watched it, check it out on Netflix. The Redeem Team with LeBron and Kobe. How LeBron thought he was bringing a mentality, and then Kobe came in and it took it up a level.
I'm sorry. '08 NBA Finals. He lost. Lakers
Yeah,
won in
yeah.
2009,
He lost to
2010.
the Celtics. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, Pat. How can we follow you? How can we support you? Always a pleasure having you on.
Hey, thank you so much for having me as always, Monty. Just follow me on social media at Pat_Benson_Jr. Just give me a shout on there. I'm always happy to chop it up with anybody. And as always, this was a lot of fun, man. And I know it's rude to invite yourself somewhere. I'm from the South, but I'm going to invite myself back on. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
Pat, you're one of my favorite guests for two reasons. One, as you can see my Trey Young picture up there, I have the NBA League Pass. I watch every Hawk game. And plus, I love what you do on social media, and you're
Thank you.
living the dream. You're covering a team that you love. You're going to the games, and let's be honest, you have the best sneakers out of any broadcaster in America.
Hey man, don't stop. Keep going. I know. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, man. Well, we're both very blessed and very lucky. So I look forward to the next time we talk, man.
All right, Pat, you ever need anything, just put it on my page. Ever want to promote something, I'll try to help you out as best I can, and I'll do the same with you.
Likewise, bro. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. That was Pat Benson Jr. Does a tremendous job covering the Hawks. Look how excited I am when I can talk about my Hawks. Yes, does an amazing job. Okay. Make sure to follow him on social media. I just want to talk real quick about the New York Mets. The New York Mets have done a great job. They've signed a bunch of pitchers, and people really came after me here for saying that Team NBS right here. The Mets keep Brandon Nimmo. The deal is 8 year for $162 million. Listen, the Atlanta Braves have a player who's been a Met killer for years, and his name is Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna signed an 8 year, $100 million contract. The Mets gave Brandon Nimmo $62 more million than a better player in Ronald Acuna. Brandon Nimmo doesn't steal bases. He's a leadoff batter that doesn't steal bases. How much more successful would the Mets have been if there's Brandon Nimmo on second, who can run like the wind, and there's no outs, and you have Jeff McNeil, you have Francisco Lindor, or you have Pete Alonso coming up with a man on second, no one out. That puts all the pressure in the world on a pitcher early on. Now, if you want to put Brandon Nimmo seventh or eighth in the lineup or sixth, I'm fine with it. But as a leadoff hitter, no. Again, the Mets gave this guy $62 more million than the Braves gave Ronald Acuna Jr., who's a better player. And now you say, Monty, it's not your money. No, it's not my money. But if you overpay someone $62 million, that's money that could be going to a top tier middle relief pitcher. It's money that could be going to another player. Again, I'm not comparing apples to apples here, apples to oranges, whatever the saying is. Ronald Acuna, 8 years, $100 million. He's a much better player than Brandon Nimmo. I like Brandon Nimmo, but not for $162 million. And again, it is my money. I'm a Met fan. I'm a Met fan, so I don't want to see them overpay for guys. If you think Brandon Nimmo is $62 million better than Ronald Acuna, you have not watched the Mets or the Braves this year. Great job by Pat. Great job by you guys. Make sure to check out the Full Monty Sports Show podcast. The Full Monty Sports Show podcast. We have 2 episodes a week. It's just audio, 30 minutes of me talking sports. Check that out. Make sure to follow us tomorrow and tune in tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, with Brad Ward and Amy Marie Castillo. In the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.
They were